I would like to call the August 19, 2024 public meeting concerning proposed 2024-2025 budget and 2024-25 tax rate. It is 5:30 p.m. There is a quorum present. Notice of meeting has been posted in a time and manner required by law. Mr. Jones, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Cliff Williamson. Present. Scott Carson.
Present.
Charles Perry. Present. Kyle Hagemeyer.
Present.
Miss Paulette Traylor.
Present.
Miss Nikita Lagway.
Present.
My name is Chad Jones. Thank you.
This time we'll turn it over to the Superintendent of Finance, Mr. Garrett Monte.
Sir. Good evening, Board. Dr. James, Ms. DeLosa. We will kick off this evening with a public meeting to present the proposed tax rate and budgets for the 2024-2025 fiscal and tax year. There will also be time available for public comments specifically on these topics before we adjourn and open the regularly scheduled meeting. We'll begin with the proposed tax rates for 24-25. Per the Texas Property Code 26.05, the tax rate must be adopted in two components. The first is maintenance and operations, M&O, along with state funding. This portion of the tax rate is used to fund the general operations of the district. The second component of the tax rate is the interest and sinking, INS, or debt service rate. This portion of the tax rate is used to pay the annual debt payments associated with the voter-approved bond sales. Taking a look at our proposed rates for maintenance and operations, the proposed rate for the 2024 tax year is 0.6669, which is 0.0023 cents lower than last year's tax rate. The tax rate of 0.6669 is considered the maximum compressed rate allowable for a school district to adopt per the most current legislation passed in the summer of 2023. For debt service, when the district advertised the bond election in May of 2024, it did so advertising a possible 7.9 cent increase for the debt service tax rate. With the passing of Proposition A in the amount of $102.7 million, it is the recommendation to increase the debt service rate by a voter-approved 3.7 cents for an INS rate of 0.368 for the 2024 tax year. This would result in a total tax rate of 1.0349, which is roughly 3.5 cents increase from last year, but still down over 23.5 cents from 1920. Okay, so when you're adopting the tax rate, there's also very strict language and motion requirements. This can be almost intentionally confusing, but for maintenance and operations, it is required that we include the following statement for the tax rate resolution. That statement is that this year, or this tax rate will raise more taxes for maintenance and operations than last year's tax rate. While this statement is true, this is due to the increase in property values rather than the increase in the tax rate. If you remember that the tax rate for the M&O is actually going down slightly, so this language is required and it's due mainly to the increase in the property values. Also, the motion and resolution must also contain the following language. The tax rate will effectively be raised 13.46%. Again, this is primarily due to the fact that the property values increased within Willis ISD. Also, I like to point out that while the district will bring in more revenue from local property taxes as a result of increased property values, this does not take into consideration that at the same time we will receive less revenue from the state for next year as a result of increased property values and increased taxes. Moving on to the proposed budgets for 24-25. At this point, you've seen all these numbers a few times throughout the summer, but to reiterate, these budgets were built on a growth of approximately 240 students. I'm optimistic. Early indications look positive that we are going to hit that number and more, maybe even surpass that number. We used a position vacancy allowance of 2 to 4%. Based on employee group. We also are using a tax rate that we just reviewed, 0.6669 for the general fund budget and 0.368 for the debt service budget. The budgets being proposed for adoption tonight are the general fund, the debt service fund, and the child nutrition fund. The fiscal year for the district and these funds is September 1st of 2024 to August 31st, 2025. Okay, the general fund. We are proposing a balanced budget in the amount of just under $86.4 million, with just over 58% coming from local revenue, 40% coming from state aid, and 1.6 coming from federal sources. If you look at the expenditure side, the primary change compared to last year's budget is the compensation and staffing additions. As you're obviously well aware, in April, the board approved the compensation package for this school year that just went underway. This budget includes the approved increase to the teacher scales, as well as a 3% increase for all other staff. The compensation package is projected increase of $2 million in this year's budget. The district also made a significant investment in additional staffing for this school year, approximately $3 million, with the majority of these positions being in the classroom. Here's a quick snapshot of the additional budgeted positions. Like I mentioned, the majority of these are in the classroom to account for enrollment growth and the strategic effort to reduce teacher-to-student class ratios. There is also a block of special education positions to respond to growth in that program. I'll also note that this is not a comprehensive list of new positions, but additional positions that had a budgetary impact specifically on the general fund. For example, we added some positions at Lynn Lucas and at Hardy, but we were able to fund those positions through title, so those positions are not included on this list. For child nutrition, the proposed budget is $6.87 million. This includes a 3% raise for this employee group, as well as a relatively small amount in capital outlay. This will allow Michael to finish a few of these equipment upgrades up that he's been working on, but for the most part, he's made significant strides in updating the cafeterias, the kitchens, the serving lines the last 2 years. He's made some significant strides there. The largest expenditure group you'll see in this budget is supplies and material. In reality, that's food cost. That's the biggest increase in this budget from last year, and that's to account for increased enrollment and also increased food cost. For debt service, the proposed budgets are balanced at $26.2 million. This budget reflects the planned issuance of the $102.7 million approved in May within this budget year. The board has already approved the issuance of the $15 million, which is going to take place here in the next few weeks, the first part of September. We are currently projecting to issue the remaining $87 million in the summer of 2025. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I'll worry you on the meetings.
Okay. Well, this time we can open for public comment.
Great job.
There are no public comments. We have Mr. Williams.
There was a adjournment.
We have a motion by Mr. Williams, a second by Mr. Carson. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. It is 5:38 p.m. I would like to call the August 19th, 2024 regular meeting to order. It is 5:39 p.m. There is a quorum present, and notice of this meeting has been posted in a time and manner required by law. Mr. Jones, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Cliff Williams.
Present.
Scott Carson. Present. Charles Perry. Present. Kyle Hagemeyer.
Present.
Ms. Paulette Trailer.
Present.
Ms. Nikita Lagway.
Present.
My name is Jay Jones. Thank you.
All right. At this time, we will go to our public comment portion of the meeting. The board will hold public comments from the audience only during the public comment portion of the meeting. Groups of 5 or more who wish to express the same viewpoint on an issue must appoint a representative and speak for the group 3 minutes and have 3 minutes to present unless the topic is an item on the board agenda. Please respect the privacy of others and refrain from identifying students, employees, and other community members by name. I will determine whether the speaker has attempted to solve a matter administratively through resolution channels established by policy. If not, the speaker will be referred to the appropriate policy to seek resolution. Disruption of this meeting will not be tolerated at any time. Per board policy, the board does not respond during public comments. Our first speaker tonight is Diane Hibner.
For the past 3 months, I have been talking about the fact that the community of WISD would like for someone in the administration or school board to speak out about the mistakes of the past regarding the use of our taxpayer monies and those being transparent with the community. Be honest, be truthful. I have been using Timmy the Crow, as you see here, to emphasize that all members of the community wanted was for someone to eat some crow. This evening, I am happy to inform everyone that during the 3 recent Community Bond Committee meetings, crow has been eaten. Therefore, I am pleased to announce that Timmy is now retired. Another topic that I have put forth for We the People since September of 2023 is the DUI charge against school board member position number 5. The DUI charge occurred on September 12, 2023, and has been the topic of much discussion and concern within the WISD community. The required jury trial, as requested by the defendant, school board member position 5, has been delayed and delayed and delayed. The judge has finally stated no more delays will be accepted. The trial will take place on Monday, September 30th, 2024 at 8:00 a.m., more than 1 year after the offense. We the People are once again requesting that school board member position number 5 resign from his position before the trial. We, the members of the WISD community, are embarrassed by this unacceptable action and behavior of an individual who is supposed to be representing us and making decisions about the future of our children and grandchildren. Does this person represent the role model that we want for our students? I think not. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Bob Holden.
Good evening. I'm not going to finish all of this, but you have a copy in front of you. Hopefully it contains some items that maybe you can implement locally within the ISD, as other ISDs have done, that could enhance student learning and even add to the protection of our country. Remembering, I'm glad you're approaching education because we are 35th in the world. In the 50s and 60s, we were number 1 in the world. A counselor here said, oh, that's because a lot of countries split off technical and educational, like junior high. That was true in the 50s and 60s too. And so we're 35th in the world. Texas is 42nd in the United States, and we're not at the top of that list. But y'all are working on that, and we really appreciate that. Thank you. In junior high in the 50s, we were taught about the Bolshevik Revolution, the Cultural Revolution, the oligarchs, the starvation of Ukraine, the brown shirts, how even Hitler had the good sense to get rid of Antifa. We were taught about Mussolini, Hirohito, and even all the way back to Rome. Here in the United States, we're repeating that. And I wondered why people are not alarmed, because history does sometimes repeat itself. In fact, repetitively in this case. We are in very dangerous circumstances right now as a country based on that history. I would ask that you put that back into the curriculum so people can see what's going on and how we are in danger. And it also seems that too few people recognize that we don't have American currency. And the United States does not control the currency that we have in our pocket. And let people know how that happened and why that happened. The communists have been destroying this country incrementally for about 100 years. It actually goes to the 1890s. and people are not aware of it. They're not aware of how blessed we are. I've lived in many countries, many years, and we are the only one that's free. I like to use the old phrase, if you're born in the United States, you ask, what is it I'm not allowed to do? In almost every other country when you're born, you have to start asking what it is that you are allowed to do. Another area where the communists are being very successful in affecting the destruction of this country is man-made climate change. There's absolutely no scientific evidence that mankind's activities are contributing to causing climate change, nor is there any proof that we even could. There is also no evidence that the climate is not acting naturally as it always has through its many cycles. Those who want to be duped by this con, they can support their beliefs by stopping their own exhaling. Of course there's climate change. That's the natural order and has always existed. Along with this, teach what constitutes scientific proof and what it means. I've talked to college graduates, had no idea, even that basic concept. Mentioned, I believe that we're in serious times. Just look at what's happening around the world. Needless, massive killing is happening on many continents. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sunday Shipley.
Can't find my glasses. Good evening, members of Willis ISD School Board, Superintendent Dr. Kimberly James. My name is Sunday Shibley, and I'm a proud member of the community, deeply invested in the future of our children and the quality of their education. I want to start by expressing my gratitude and excitement for the progress that has been made over the summer. I was thrilled to learn that several inappropriate books have been removed from our schools. This is a significant step in ensuring that the materials our students are exposed to align with the values of our community and the educational standards we all hold dear. Thank you for taking the concerns of parents and community members seriously and for acting to protect our children. It's reassuring to know that our voices are heard and that positive change is happening. I also want to take this opportunity to share how excited I am about the leadership within our district, particularly Superintendent Dr. Kimberly James and Assistant Superintendent of Innovation, Teaching, and Learning, John Bagliente, or I can't say it. Over the past few weeks, I've had the privilege of speaking with John and corresponding with him through emails, and I must say I am very encouraged by what I've seen and heard. John has shown a genuine commitment to our students and a clear vision for the future of our district. His approach to leadership and his willingness to engage with the community gives me confidence that we are on the brink of something exciting developing in Willis ISD. The direction he seems to be taking is one that focuses on both academic excellence and the well-being of our students. It's refreshing to see such proactive and thoughtful leadership at the helm. I'm excited to see the initiatives and improvements that will undoubtedly unfold under his and Dr. James' guidance. In closing, I want to reiterate my thanks to the board and the administration for the work you've done so far and my support for the leadership team as we move forward. I believe we have the right people in place to make significant strides in creating an environment where our students can thrive both academically and personally. Thank you for your time and dedication to making Willis a district as we can all be proud of. I look forward to working together to continue building a bright future for our children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This time, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. James for our Pledge of Allegiance and invocation.
Absolutely. Thank you. If you all please stand. I have Jamie Fales coming up to introduce our speakers.
Good evening, President Hagemeyer, Dr. James, rest of our board members, and Ms. DeLosa. And of course, thank you to everyone here attending as an audience member tonight. We appreciate you being here to support our school district. We are going to start kicking off our school sponsorships of our meetings. We do not have Student of the Month tonight since we've only been in school 3 days, but Mr. King was gracious enough to bring us some lovely girls to do our pledge and prayer. So, Mr. King, our principal of the high school.
Thank you. Good evening, President Hagemeyer, Board of Trustees, Dr. James, Ms. DeLosa. Tonight's my honor to introduce some amazing students at Willis High School. It is volleyball season, as you know, and we have two of our finest players here. First, I want to introduce to you a student who led us in our pledges, senior Carly Paul. Carly is currently committed to Ole Miss and holds a collegiate GPA of 3.64. Ms. Paul is also in top 10% of her class. Also, she'll graduate in December and enroll in January at Ole Miss. She wants to major in communication and wants to work for ESPN. She's been a member of varsity for 4 years, and these stats I'm sure may be a tad off, but I hope they're right. Has totaled over 1,000 kills, over 160 blocks, over 400 digs in that time. Once again, Carly Paul.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now for the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you.
Thank you, Carly. This time I want to introduce one of our other amazing student athletes to pray for us, Miss Tori Greeny. Miss Greeny is a junior at Willis High School and has a 3.75 GPA. She's also top 10 of her class. She also is a member of the volleyball team. Last 3 seasons has racked up over 366 correct kills, 310 digs, and 380 serving aces. She's a leader on and off the court. Someone you rarely see in the house when you see her. She's always smiling. Tori Greeny.
Dear God, thank you for this opportunity to come together tonight. Please guide our school board and superintendent as they make decisions to lead our district. During this new school year, please watch over our teachers, administration, and staff as they educate the students. We ask that you keep our school safe and help protect and guide us in our after-school activities. In Jesus' name, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. I did see our coach, Miss Jenkins, right there. Thank you, Coach Jenkins. Nothing better than one or two. Take a seat, please. I'm sorry. Not just 2 recognitions, but I also have a third one, correct? Amazing students at Willis High School. This time, I'm going to introduce Ken Lebonsky.
Good evening, Mr. President, Dr. James, school board members, Mr. Losa. I'm here this evening to share some wonderful news. Last year in the fall, I was made aware that we had a student in our program, in our band program, that was at the area level of competition for the TMEA All-State process. And I remember meeting this young man in our Performing Arts Center, and it was a wonderful space for him to record his final level audition to find out if he was going to make the state level or not. And I had 2 takeaways from that day. The first one was, my goodness, does this kid play so well. He played with musicality and nuance, all the higher order thinking skills that we hope for all of our students in our fine arts programs. And he was demonstrating these skills beautifully. The other thing that I took away from that encounter of meeting this student was he's a freshman. My goodness, he's demonstrating these higher order skills at such a young age. And I remember listening through the door and just being blown away. And it wasn't a surprise that he did indeed make the All-State band. And he actually was recognized as being second in the state of Texas. And that's not just one little lane of a certain number of schools. That's the entire state, all the big dogs in 6A. And so we were super proud of him. You may recall that we acknowledged him for that in the springtime. And so it wasn't a surprise to me and as band director, Mr. Dudforth, that he was going to participate in the UIL solo contest. And at the regional level, he received a superior rating from his judge, which made him a qualifier to proceed on to the state level out in Austin. And at the beginning of the summer, he went out and competed and played his solo. And that's a very different kind of competition. It's not auditioning to be a part of an organization. It's actually a solo performance. And so he received a superior, and we were super proud of him and you know, very overwhelmed by that accolade he could add to his resume. But then we found out something extra special this summer. Each of the judges at the state level, and we're talking about college professors and professional musicians, get kind of like a bonus card that they can pull out on a very rare occasion if they find a young musician that really exhibits a level of musicality and perfection that is far beyond that of the state contest. Think about that for a second. So we're talking about state musicians, state level musicians, and being recognized above that. And so we found out that this summer that this student was recognized as a superior outstanding student in the state of Texas, and he'll be receiving a medal given to an athlete or similar to an athlete or an academic champion. And so with that, without further ado, here to help him be celebrated, please join me in celebrating Mr. Drew Walker on his accomplishment as an outstanding state performer.
Good evening, Dr. James, Mr. Hagemeyer, Board of Trustees, and Ms. DeLosa. Michelle Bischoff here to talk with you about the annual report from our past fiscal year from the Willis ISD Education Foundation. Per our MOU with the district, we'll present this annually to you going forward. For anyone that doesn't know, in 2021, we reorganized the foundation from a district employee-driven organization to a community volunteer organization. Garrett, I think you took the clip. Okay. Here is our board of directors, all those who serve with us. You'll see your very own Paulette Traylor. She is one of our ex officio board members, which means she does not vote. She is our direct link to Willis ISD School Board. And her job is to kind of report back to y'all the things that we're doing and just keep y'all in the loop on what's going on. Each year we go through a competitive grant process. This past year we awarded over 25 grants across the district, totaling more than $80,000. These are some of the grants that we gave away this year. $4,000 went to Dr. Bright at the CTE Center to purchase an industry standard gurney. We got the pleasure to go on a little tour of all of our grants that we gave out, or some of them, at the end of the school year last year. And so we got to see the kids really in action of things that they will do once they enter the workforce. When they complete this program, they will have an EMT certification. And so Dr. Bright specifically wanted the exact same gurney that Montgomery County Hospital District uses. So those kids are ready to step into that workforce in our local community. $7,000 went to sewing machines for our fashion design program. They actually sewed a project that went into space this year on our sewing machines that we provided, so that was very exciting. We got to see some of the work that they completed, and then the NASA signing, we got to see the actual little pockets that they completed. So Marty the robot teaches our kids programming, and this is a paper copy. I did originally have a video in there. It is the cutest thing. These kids had that robot dancing, and they can teach it to go forward, do all of those kind of things, because we know that programming is what the future looks like for our kids. And then at Lynn Lucas, we did visibly accessible microscopes. Kids have Chromebooks there, and so the microscopes actually attach to the Chromebook so they can see what the microscope is seeing. I think if you've ever used a microscope, you know how hard it is to squint your eyeballs and look through there. So that actually blows up what they're seeing, so they can use it in groups and stuff like that. One of our larger areas of giving under scholarships is to seniors. Seniors that are graduating from Willis High School can apply for one of our scholarships. It can be a 4-year university, 2-year, or a trade school. And this year we gave away 17 scholarships totaling $25,500. Some of the other ways that we support the district are through Bus Driver of the Month. That's one of my favorite things, is to go to transportation every month. Those bus drivers celebrate each other so well, and they get such a small prize for it, but they drive around all month with the Bus Driver of the Month magnets on the side. If you go around Willis anytime about 3:45 in the afternoon or so, you'll see them. But they just get so excited. It's so fun to hear them talk about their kids. And Teacher Treat Tuesday, we pop in with treats from HEB to each campus once in the fall and once in the spring. And it just is a good way for us to say thank you to our staff. Read Across America, that's a good time for the foundation plus Willis ISD administration to join together. We go out on Dr. Seuss's birthday to all of our elementary campuses, and we get to see the work that's going on in schools. And then Heart of a Wildcat Award is something we give each year to a staff member that goes above and beyond what we feel like it means to be a Wildcat, somebody who continues to give to our kids. We just finished up our school supply drive. We had over 16 locations throughout the Willis ISD area, and we brought in a lot of school supplies. We donate those directly to Wildcat Resource Center so they can fill backpacks with them. Kroger's donated over $15,000 in-kind supplies this year for us, so that was exciting. We give scholarships for summer enrichment camps for students that are not able to attend the camps that are held at the CTE. We've done that for about 3 years. And then Teacher and Paraprofessional of the Year lunch, we host them usually at Guadalajara's. It's a nice open lakefront lunch. It's very relaxing. Our staff enjoys it. You can just see them kind of and relax. We have lots of candy, and we also provide a gift card for them, and our partner with that is TCS Air Conditioning and Heating. Staff appreciation. That's something different that we transitioned this year, and we held a giant ice cream party this year. We invited every single staff member from Willis ISD, and we gave out a lot of thank you gifts. And our staff absolutely loved it. They had a chance to visit with each other, relax, and just feel appreciated. So this is what our financials look like. Some of the ways that we raise money, the main ways, are we had our raffle this year that ran from January to it was supposed to be May the 3rd, but we had some weather, so we drew the next week for our raffle prizes. But this year we are swapping our events, our big golf tournament and bash. They're going to opposite seasons, and so we put the raffle in there this year to help us continue to raise money without having a bash, which sounds weird because we just had a bash, but that actually goes on next fiscal year. So employee giving, that's where we partner with our staff and offer them an opportunity that's totally voluntary to give back. And they do, and they do it in a huge way. And just having gone out, our staff is really dialed into what the foundation is doing and what we're giving back to the district. So it was very exciting to see their energy and all the people, oh my gosh, I was waiting for you to come, and stuff like that. So that was exciting. And then our golf tournament that we had in the spring brought in a little over $43,000. So our expenses, the main ones are obviously teaching our grants, and then senior scholarships, and then all the photos that you saw before, that's what counts as district support. So currently we have over $213,000 sitting in our bank account. Much of that is a CD and an endowment. And so if you do not follow us, now's a good time to get out your phone if you're out here. We have Twitter, we have Facebook, and we have Instagram. So you can also scan the QR code to go straight to our website to see all the other things that we do. Any questions for me? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. 2023-24 Willis ISD Star Report, Star Data Report. Tracy Jackson.
Good evening. Mr. President, Dr. James, School Board, Ms. DeLosa. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tracy Jackson. I am the Assessment and Accountability Coordinator, and tonight I'm going to walk you through our 2024 STAR results. First, I'm going to give you a little overview. Oh, man. I'm going to give you a little overview, and then we're going to go into the 3 through 8 STAR results, and then on to the STAR EOC, and I'll give you a little preview of accountability as we know it today. So a little overview. Our district is growing, as you well know. So this is what our campuses look like, kind of overview. And this is our elementaries. You'll notice that beside every elementary, I've put our enrollment. This was our enrollment based upon our snapshot last October. That has definitely grown since then, so I want everyone to know that that's going to change. I also put up there our 3 demographics, or our 3 demographic groups, and then 3 student indicators that we have that are the majority in our district. So you'll notice that in our demographics, our Hispanic and our white are about 85 to 90% of our students that are enrolled. You'll also notice that we have a large economically disadvantaged group for 4 of our 6 campuses. You'll notice that our bilingual, or emergent bilingual students have a very high count at our 2 elementaries due to those being our bilingual campuses. And I'm sure some of you are wondering, wait a minute, I see Hispanic and emergent bilingual up there, aren't those the same thing? And they're not. To be able to be an emergent bilingual, that means that you are qualified because your home language is not English. You are acquiring English language, and that's how you qualify. You might also have a question about what is economically disadvantaged. The state and the federal government like to say that is free and reduced lunch, but that might also be single parent families or grandparents. That means that maybe a student goes home after school and has to watch a sibling. Our students may have to get a second job to help with their family and their finances. So economically disadvantaged is not just about free and reduced lunch. So here's our elementaries, and our elementaries feed into our middle schools. You'll notice that Lucas has a 20% higher economically disadvantaged rate. It also has about a 10% higher emergent bilingual rate. But you'll notice that Brabham has more students. And then all of our schools lead to the high school. So last year, our enrollment at Snapshot was a little over 2,600 students with 57% EcoDisc, economically disadvantaged students. And then all of those funneled into our district, or comprised of our district, which is, again, at Snapshot, was a little over 8,900 students with a 63% economically disadvantaged, and our Hispanic and our white, again, accounting for about 90% of our district. So what else do we want to overview here? So if you have a child or a grandchild that has received a STAR report card, then you have probably seen one of these, or maybe all of these performance levels. So I'm just going to briefly go through, because they're kind of misleading about what they mean, because we are going to be talking about them later on when I present the actual 3 through 8 and EOC results. So did not meet, and you see the blue is highlighted, means that those students, unfortunately, are unlikely to succeed at the next grade level. They will need significant ongoing academic interventions. That means they didn't pass. That means that we as teachers, as administrators, we have to help them succeed. We have to put into place interventions. so that we can help them be better and not be in that did not meets for next year. Then we have the approaches, which is passing, and it means they're likely to succeed, but notice they're still going to need that targeted academic intervention when they are in class. That means more than just regular, normal classroom interventions. Then we have the meets grade level, which is highly likely to succeed and only need maybe short-term targeted interventions, maybe classroom interventions only, tier 1. And then when you get to the master's level, those are students that are expected to succeed, maybe even like our honor students. We expect them to make masters, and they need little or no academic interventions. And so what does that look like? So what that looks like for us is what's called the 90-60-30 rule, where we want 90% of our students to be at approaches or above. And we want at least 30% to be at that master's level, with only less than 10% that are at that did not meets. Are we there yet? No. Are we going in the right direction? Yes. So tonight we're going to talk about student achievement. And a lot of people, student performance, and a lot of people want to interchange that with accountability, and they're not the same thing. Accountability is like the umbrella, and student achievement is just one component of accountability that we'll talk about later on in the school year. And so I'm going to focus on student achievement tonight, as well as you'll hear me say, I don't know. Yeah, you can stop right there. So you're going to be hearing me say and talk about academic growth tonight. You're also going to hear something that deals with relative performance, and that's when I talk about our eco-disadvantaged students. You're also going to hear about things like closing the gap, and that deals with like our emergent bilingual, our student indicators. And so these things are components of accountability. Tonight we are going to focus on student achievement, but you will hear me talk about these others as we go along. So here we go, 3 through 8. So 3 through 8, our 3 through 8 students take RLA in math at every grade level, and then science at 5th and 8th, and social studies at 8th grade. And so let's just start with RLA. So as you can see, 3 through 8 is over on the left. There is a 5-year showing across the top. And then I have 2 columns blocked off, spring of 2023 and spring of 2024, along with that last column which says change in meets. And so what I want to look at is, again, those performance levels, but I want to look at the meets level specifically, which is highlighted in yellow. And I want you to just notice that we are making some great gains in RLA. But let's talk about redesign. What does that mean for something to be redesigned? So in between the spring of 2022 and 23, TEA says, whoa, we cannot have our tests be all multiple choice anymore. So at least 25% of our STAR tests have to be something else. What does that mean? That means that maybe we have constructed responses where the students have to write, not just on RLA, but in other subjects as well. They may have like questions that are drag and drop, where they have to drag the answers into certain places in the problem. There's also things like multi-select, where there's more than one answer choice that they can pick. So these are the different types of answer questions that make up the STAR test, and they make up 25% of the test, and that's mandated by TEA. So that's the reason why it's there and why I'm only looking at the last 2 columns, spring of 2023 and spring of 24, to compare, because I want to compare apples to apples. And so when I look at those, I can see that those change in meets. Just on that meets line, we have some great gains in RLA. That's how we go from 50 to 56%, and we have a 6% increase at 3rd grade. You'll notice at 4th grade, is gaining, it has 11. And you'll notice that down there at 6th grade, we're up 5%. So those are awesome. That means our curriculum is pretty tight. I'm sure there's things that we might need to tweak, but for the most part, our curriculum is holding tight in RLA. But what about if I want to talk about groups of students, not just curriculum? Did our students grow? We're growing in curriculum. Did our students grow? And yes, we can. So if we talk from one grade level 1 year to the next grade level the next year, that's called a cohort. So they move from, like in our example here, from 4th grade at 39% to 5th grade at 51%. That's a huge gain. So our students are academically growing. That cohort is academically growing. Just like from 7th grade to 8th grade, it's only 2%, but that's okay because we're having some academic growth in that area. Remember, those are a key word, academic growth. Then let's look at math. Again, the last two columns from 23 to 24, we're going to compare those. We don't have as many pluses. You'll notice that we only have a plus in those columns from 4th grade and in 5th grade. But what else can we look at? Do we have any cohorts here that increased? And we do. We have some cohorts that had academic growth. So our 3rd grade cohort to our 4th grade cohort grew. And then look at the growth from 7th grade cohort to 8th grade cohort. That grew 10 percentage points. So we're making some great gains. We're on the right track. Science and social studies. So when we look at this, science and social studies, down 4 points in 5th grade science, but we were up 3 in our 8th grade. And then there was no change from social studies from 1 year to the next. Can we look at cohorts here? No, because 5th to 8th grade is not just 1 year, so we can't do cohorts. But what can we look at? We can look at our meets numbers. And let's go one step further. Let's look at our master's numbers. Are they growing? And so in 8th grade science, we went from 4% to 6% just in our masters in 8th grade. So our students, again, are growing. Our master's performance level is growing. So what everybody wants to know is, how does our campuses do? So again, we're going to do elementary. So 3rd, 4th, and 5th is on the left. Our 6 elementary campuses are across the top. And then the state average is on the right. Again, we're looking at the meets, which is highlighted in purple. So when you look at this, did our campuses make the standard, that performance level meets at the state level? Did we make that same percentage? And look at that. In 3rd grade, all of our elementary schools were better than the state percentage. And then in 4th and 5th, we had Metter and Lagway. They were better than the state percentage there as well. RLA, doing good. Let's look at 6th and 7th grade for RLA. We're not too far off. Brabham is only 3 percentage points, which is awesome. We have some ways to go with Lucas. This is an area of focus, but we're on the right track again for this. So let's look at math for 3 through 8, or 3 through 5. Again, our elementaries are across the top. State is on the right side. Do we have campuses that beat the state percentage? And yes, we did. We had some that were close to the state percentage, but just didn't meet it. But look what happened in 4th grade. We picked up another campus. So we had 3 campuses out of the 6 that met or were above the state performance. And then Lagway was above in 5th grade. What about 6th, 7th, and 8th? Well, the gap is a little bit wider here. We are trending in the right direction, though, again. We are making some gains. If you'll notice, down there at 8th grade, our meets for 8th grade is only from 30 to 40, or 33 to 40%. So we're only 7 percentage points behind. And look at the masters, it's only 5 percentage points behind. So again, we're trending in the right direction. Science and social studies. So when I look at science and I look at these 6 campuses, did any of those 6 campuses beat the state average? And Lagway did. And you're thinking, what did Lagway do that was different than everyone else? Well, we need to use Lagway. We need to understand what they did and help them model and help the other campuses understand. Maybe they can teach possibly how to do a lab, how to increase those other elementary scores. And then we have our science and our social studies at 8th grade. And not to say, this as an excuse, but the passing percentage for the state for 8th grade science and social studies was not that great either. We aren't near what that was, but again, we are getting closer. So what does that look like in our 90-60-30 rule? As you can see, we have two grades that are in the teens, 3rd and 4th. So we're getting there with that 10% under and 90% above that line. We still need some work in our 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade for RLA, but we're trending in the right way. In math, you'll notice that our 3rd, 4th, and 5th are all in the mid to high 20s. So we need to push those up. Again, we want only 10% below that line, with 7th grade being obviously our biggest area of focus for math. And then again, our science and social studies, we need to look at that. That is a very high focus for us, and you can tell that our science and social studies are struggling. So now we're going to look at those demographics that we talked about at the very beginning when I was showing you the campuses. So 2 things are happening on this graph. One is we have RLA and math showing. RLA is in purple, the orange is math. And then we are the columns, and the state is that dotted line up at the top. So let's just take a look at purple to purple. So that's RLA. So you'll notice that 3rd, 4th, and 5th is either above the state or pretty close to the state. And then in 6th and 7th, it drops off, and then it rebounds back up in 8th grade. Not completely up to that state line, but close. But our math, when we look at that, only in 4th grade are we at the state. So we have some gaps. And then we need to look at our closing the gaps for 6th and 7th grade, and then we rebound a little bit in 8th. So we have some closing the gaps issues at the math level with our Hispanic group of students. So now let's look at our other demographic. Remember, Hispanic and white make up 90% of our population. And so again, if we look at this graph for the white demographic, purple, again, is RLA. So let's look at our purple compared to the state. So our purple columns compared to the state at the top. You'll notice that in 3rd grade we are above, and we are pretty consistent all the way across, even through our middle schools. The gap does widen just a little bit when we are in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade for RLA. In math, we are consistent. That's the green columns. So we are consistent for 3rd and 4th and 5th grade, and then we dip back down again for 6th and 7th, and then try and rebound again in 8th grade. Let's look at our economically disadvantaged. So we're looking at student indicators now, not demographics. So the graph has changed. So our solid colors is the district, the pattern colors is the state. So let's just look at the green right now. Green is RLA. So if you look at the green, solid green towers, you can see that in RLA, in 3rd, 4th, and 5th, we're above the state. And then we're pretty close to what the state is for 6th, 7th, and 8th. The gap is not very wide. If you look at the blue, that is the math. Again, in 3rd and 4th and 5th, the gap is, we're either right there with the state or very close. And then in 6th and 7th, we dip again and come back up in 8th grade. And then our emergent bilinguals. So RLA, once again, is in green, and math is in purple. And if we look at the green in 3rd, 4th, and 5th, we're either at the state level or just a little bit below. And then in math, you can see that our bilingual group math is not a universal language. We have some wider gaps that we need to close on this student indicator. So what's our takeaways? So our scores indicate that 5 out of 6 of our elementaries are showing significant growth, and our highest performing is maintaining their level of performance. We also see that our 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade are showing growth in RLA. We also see that our 4th and 6th is showing growth in math as well, again at that meets level. But what is our areas of improvement? So our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, we're looking at being below the state percentage for RLA and math. Our 5th and 8th grade science is below the state average, as well as our 8th grade is below the state average along with our sub-pops and our demographic groups. So what are we doing? Well, as you already heard, we hired some teachers, okay? We've lowered that class size. This helps in discipline. This helps in Tier 1 instruction in the classroom. So we are working on that. We're also working on helping our beginning teachers with Tier 1 instruction and those teachers that come to us that are on an ALT certification, learn Tier 1 best practices, classroom best practices. We're also looking at implementing that STEM scopes that I think some of you may have been a part of, with implementing that new curriculum. So that will help in science. And then our TEACS resource is always there for our other areas. We're looking at literacy framework and guided math and providing all that framework and that professional development for that. And guided math isn't what it used to be, okay? It's not like it was in the 80s and the 90s, it's different. So guided math is like a little assessment, and it tells you what areas to target with groups so that you know this group needs this target and needs to work on this specific item. And then we're talking about effective instructional strategies. What does that mean on Webb's depth of knowledge? Well, we're asking those deep questions to our students so we know if they really understand what we are teaching and then can give us that deep understanding of a response back. We're not asking, do you understand? And it being a yes or no answer. And then we're still using those collaborative meetings, and like we talked about for maybe 5th grade science, we're having those master teachers like model. What are they doing to improve, for instance, 5th grade science on their campus? So these are our action plans for our elementary and our middle schools. Does anybody have any questions so far? All right. So now we're going to go on to our EOCs. So we have English 1 and 2, Algebra 1, Biology, and U.S. History. So as a district, again, they had a star redesign. So I'm comparing apples to apples. So 2023 to 2024, and you can see that all but U.S. history made great gains, with Algebra 1 having the biggest gain of all at 9% at the meets level. And you're saying, but U.S. history didn't go up. True, but look what else happened. They stayed consistent. They maintained that master's level. So it's okay if they went down at the, not okay, but it's all right if they went down at the meets level as long as we keep maintaining that master's as well. So what does that look like? Well, if you look at biology and U.S. history, that visual already, we're already in that less than 10% underneath the line and 90% above. So we're already in that 90-60-30 rule. Now, we need to work on Algebra 1. It's getting better. As you saw, it already had a 9% increase. And then English 1 and English 2. So those are some language acquisition things that we need to work on with our emergent bilinguals. So let's look at high school specifically. So what did high school do? So you'll notice that once again, the 9% increase in Algebra 1, but what else did they do? Look at that masters. We had some really good increase percentage in those master levels. So in Algebra 1, we gained 7 percentage points at the master's level. And we gained 5 percentage points at biology at the master's level, and then 4 in English 1. So we are gaining, we are getting up to that 30%. We are working towards that and going in the right direction. What about Lucas? So Algebra 1 at Lucas, they didn't have any change, and they gained 2 percentage points in biology, but look at their master's increase. That is a huge master's increase in Algebra 1. Phenomenal change there. And then also, we had a 4% increase in biology at the master's level. And then if we look in Brabham, look at their increase at the meets level. They went up 17 percentage points and 9 percentage points at the meets level for biology, along with their masters went up considerably as well at Algebra 1 from 27% to 45%. So what about our demographic groups? So you'll notice when we look at the Hispanic group that this range between us, which is the columns, and the state, which is the dotted line, the gap right there is not too far. We're trending in the right direction. We still need to close that gap so that we can meet the state percentage, but we're really close on that. If you look at the white, the gap's a little bit larger in all areas except for biology. So again, this is a focus that we need to look at. And then when we look at our eco-disc, we are the solids. Again, the pattern is the state, so we are pretty consistent. The gap is no wider than 5% at the economically disadvantaged in any of the EOCs that we're looking at. And then the emergent bilinguals. So again, we are the solids, the pattern is the state, and we do see some gaps here that we need to close, and this is an area of focus for us. For those emergent bilingual students. So what's our takeaway? So tentatively, Willis High School has made significant growth, as you can see, in their student performance. Algebra, biology, English 2, Algebra 1, of course, with the greatest percentage. And then both Lucas and Brabham made some great growth as well at not only their meets level, but also at their master's level, sometimes at approximately 20% greater, or gaining 20% at their master's level. But what do we need to focus on? What is our areas of improvement? So we noticed when I showed the little graph that we were below the state percentage at the meets performance. So we need to work on that. We're not there yet. We're trending that way, but we're not there yet in all of our EOCs. We also know that our demographics and our student indicators are below the state performance as well. We also know that our district retesters, we need to work on those in the approaches and the meets as well. So what are we doing? So again, you saw that we are bringing on new teachers. So we are adding more. I think they added 4 at the high school. We've added, I think, 3 or 4 at Lucas. 7 were added, not just for EOCs, but in general at Brabham. So we're reducing that class size again. We're just reducing discipline, increasing Tier 1 instruction in the classroom. We're continuing that professional development, that support for STEM scopes, Delta Math, that depth of knowledge questioning as well. But to work on our emergent bilinguals, which we saw the biggest gap, we're working on those Tier 2 and Tier 3 impact, those high instructional strategies for those emergent bilingual and those special education students. And then for our retesters, these are students that didn't pass, that we need to pass because they have to pass all 5 EOCs to be able to graduate. And so we have counselors, we have our administrators, we have 1416 in place, House Bill 1416, that talks about attendance, that talks about monitoring, that talks about communicating with student and parents about what they need to be able to graduate with those EOCs and to be able to pass them. And then something else that is being implemented for those students so that they are responsible for their own testing and their own growth is a student tracker. And that's going to be asked of them so that they can analyze and they can model their own data. Questions about EOC?
Do we have very many students that you have to push at the end to graduate?
Every year, you have some that
Like
push, but
10,
a
12?
large number, yeah, that's a handful, yes, ma'am.
Yes. And last but not least, let's talk about accountability, which, if you didn't know, last Monday, a temporary restraining order was filed and granted that prohibits TEA from assigning as A through F or distributing those performance ratings. This is not with the lawsuit from last year. This is something totally and completely new. The lawsuit from last year is still holding in place. There has been no judgment on that. Therefore, we still do not have A through F ratings from last year. So this year, this new temporary restraining order that was issued and granted is all about AI, and that is what grades the constructed responses. And so last Monday, as a matter of fact, that was granted. This coming Monday, they will hold a hearing, and we will see where it goes from there. Until then, we will not get A through F ratings for this year either until a judgment is ruled on that situation. Questions?
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. I wanted just to highlight just a few things out of the PowerPoint presentation that she spoke about that I kind of dug a little deeper just to kind of, sometimes those scores can be a little bit, disappointing, right? We want better for our kids.
Absolutely.
And so something that we've talked about that we've got in place, as you heard, is developing a math and literacy framework. We're going to be working on that. The other thing that I want to bring up is that when you see scores that are percentages of students that are performing so low, higher rate of failure rate, for example, in our middle schools, we have some areas that we know, and I have great leaders at those campuses. In fact, I have great leaders at every single campus. I just want you to know that. And what I say is that we have a headache problem in math and a headache problem in language arts. And in math specifically, that is about looking at curriculum. I believe that is where we're going to be tightening up and looking at improving that, and you'll see some improvements. The other thing I wanted to say is we had 17 points increase at Hardy. 17 points, that's significant. I mean, we had at Turner an increase in 10 points. 10 points was an increase at Hardy Elementary School. Metter had a 6-point increase as well. And then lastly, Cannon had a 9-point. Our high school had 11-point increase in their from last year to this year. So not just in our student achievements, but as a campus working together, we had significant gains in lots of places. So I wanted to make sure you knew that. And then lastly, I heard as I went through all of our staff development and seeing what our campus principals are leading our teachers and doing, and that was a lot of goal setting. Specifically saying our kids performed here and we're going to look at how to improve that, little by little in increments. And so I think, when you have a moving target, it's hard to know where we're going. And so I want to just say thank you to the leadership, campus and district leadership, and I know that you're going to see an increase across the board this next year. So just wanted you to know that as well. Thank you, Tracy, for that presentation.
Thank you.
Item C, the 2024-2025 Student Handbook.
Good evening, sir. Thank you, School Board, Dr. James, and Mr. Losa. So each year, the school board is required to review the student handbook. It's not an action item for you guys to vote on, but we do let you know of the changes that were made. A lot of it was just various titles, names, just from different changes in personnel was most of it. There's also a PowerPoint that goes along with this. Because we're going to talk really specifically about the grading guidelines was one of the questions that some people had that we wanted to talk about. And then one other one, just because there's a change that's happened here just recently, is I did want to talk about a medication update as well, because we actually received notice today from the Board of Nursing that they're actually backing off of the change that they are requiring school districts to do, which allows a parent to just give an over-the-counter medication to a nurse, and you can give it to the student with a parent. They had said just a couple weeks ago you had to have a medical professional sign off on that. Now they're thinking they may back off on that. I don't know what the final word is going to be. We're going to sort of hear from TASB if we need to change any board policy. But for right now, we're going to go with a handbook with what the Board of Nursing says and have medical professional there to back that up. And that's the plan for now. And Ms. Dabrowski has worked very strongly with this to make sure that she's protecting her nurses, because it actually puts their license on the line, not just the school personnel. But the other thing that I want to talk about was the grading guidelines, because not so much that there was a big change here, but if you had looked at previous handbooks in the past, it was not very transparent about what the grading guidelines were in Willis ISD. It basically said in the handbook for the community to see, the teacher will let you know what the grading guidelines are, and that's all it ever said, which makes me understand when I was principal why when I got complaints about the grade book, it was from the employees, kids, because they knew what the grading guidelines were, the community did. So we want to make sure that everybody was actually on the same page for that. So we wanted to have, of course, alignment. All the elementary schools be aligned, the middle schools aligned, and then the high school in line with the secondary campuses as well. So that's one thing we looked at when we put these grading guidelines in place, is to make sure we had that common language. You can see there on the board, each 9 weeks, each grading period, we're expecting to be a minimum of 3 major grades, and that will include those end-of-unit exams that are going to happen in those core courses specifically as well. And then a minimum of 9 minor grades or daily grades that will include those middle-of-unit checks. So there we go. And then part of the reteach, retest policy, and this is something we've kind of gone back and forth on to make sure that we are giving our students the opportunity to achieve mastery. If we're talking about getting mastery on these state accountability tests, we're going to see the same thing here for these tests as well. And so in elementary, if they're below an 85, they have an opportunity to retest and get to an 85, and then secondary below an 80 to move up as well. Now, how we got here, it's been kind of quick here at the end, because there are so many of us that are new into the positions we are right now. In fact, we had an ITNL meeting this afternoon, and we looked around the table. Only maybe 2 or 3 people in the room have been in the position they're in right now for longer than a year, and that's it. So we're trying to get that all going in the same direction. So one thing that Mr. Valiente has talked about is we actually want to establish a committee this year for the 24-25 school year that includes teachers, principals, other maybe mid-level administrators, community members, parents, whatever it may be, to really look holistically at the grading guidelines policy we have here. But this was kind of our stopgap measure for now to make sure, let's get it out to the public, get it out to the community, knowing that if we need to make changes in the future, this is a good year for us to establish if that's going to happen or not. Okay. All right, so that is really the handbook. Like I said, the only other changes, like I said, a few name changes, some mental health supports. That's about it, stuff that came from the state. But that's it on the handbook. Thank you. Anyone see me had any questions? All right.
Thank you. Item D, safety and performance. Anything on that?
It was in your board update, and so I'm not sure, Garrett, if you have some comments on that safety report?
No, ma'am. Those are just your standard safety reports. They show the workers' comps and the injuries. Obviously, being August, just school starting, there's not too many, but it's just a report for your informational only.
Okay. Financial bill payment and bond summaries. Anything?
Yes, sir. There's some report informational, the checks written for the last month, and information for your report purposes only.
Okay. and then student enrollment.
Absolutely. I'm proud. I'm going to speak to student enrollment. This year, we have, as of today, 9,157 students in our district. We're up 378 students from last year. We have elementary as a whole is 4,275 students. The middle school is 2,075 students, and the high school enrollment is up to 2,774. So just real proud of the work that our team is doing and hustling to get those students in classrooms and making sure that we have teachers hired. So doing a great job. So thank you.
Thank you. Item 6, consent agenda. Are there any questions? Mr. Williams?
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. Williams, a second by Mr. Carson. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Consideration of possible action items. A, consideration and possible action to approve final general fund budget amendments.
Oh, thank you. Sir, good evening again. Get this, there we go. Okay. In front of you tonight is the final general fund budget amendment for the 23-24 fiscal year. Just to clarify, we've been talking about the 24-25 up until this point, but this applies to the 23-24 budget, which ends at the end of this month, this August. This final budget amendment is an annual process primarily for planning and compliance purposes as we prepare to close out our books. The two primary impacts of this budget amendment are the increased compensation in August as a result of the board-approved raises, as well as an update regarding the staff retention payments paid out this month. Originally, we anticipated utilizing federal ESSER funding for these retention payments. However, I do anticipate having a surplus for this year, which gives us the option and the opportunity to utilize a portion of that surplus for these payments. This would then allow us to utilize some of that ESSER federal funding for this next budget year. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Carson?
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve the 2023-2024 general fund amended as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. Carson, a second by Ms. Traylor. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item B, consideration and possible action item to approve transfer across district funds.
Sir, with this action item, the district is requesting authorization for a transfer across district funds. The district has what is considered a very healthy fund balance, I'm proud to say, right at $47.5 million that's in the general fund. However, at the same time, we have heavily discussed this summer back and forth with y'all about concerning the district's self-insured health insurance fund. With the influx of higher claims, increased costs, and despite the fact that we contribute a healthy amount per employee to the plan, we are still anticipating running a deficit for our current year. Originally, we discussed over the summer transferring even up to $1.5 million from the general fund. However, I've scaled that back down to $1 million to transfer to the health insurance fund. I do believe that this will help cover some of the deficit and increase that fund balance as we head into the new year. I also would like to add that we're currently in the process of implementing some cost-saving features for this next year, while at the same time focusing on not increasing the premiums for district staff. So we're trying to save money in this plan moving into next year and looking at opportunities to do so without impacting staff and the plan as a whole. I'd be happy to answer any further questions.
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve the transfer of $1 million from Fund 199 General Fund to Fund 753 Health Insurance Fund.
We have a motion by Ms. Traylor, a second by Mr. Jones. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item C, consider and possible action item to approve the commitment of fund balance.
Every year, we go through the process of committing fund balance to satisfy local and state recommendations and requirements. For the first rating, which you're going to get in October, it is recommended that we have approximately 24.4, that's about 3 months of unassigned fund balance. We are recommending to commit 23 million of our fund balance to the items listed, which would leave approximately 24.5 million in unassigned fund balance, which is over that threshold that TEA recommends. I do want to clarify that this process in no way locks these funds to these projects or anything in this grouping. If they were needed for something else, if something else arose, there would not be any issues along those lines. This is merely a process and procedure to fulfill state and audit recommendations. Happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Carson?
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve that the board rescind and previous all designations and replace them with the 23 million in commitments as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. Carson, a second by Mr. Williams. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item D, this consideration possible action item to approve the agreement to purchase attendance credit, option 3 agreement, and delegate contractual authority to the superintendent.
Sure. This past month, the district received notification of local revenue in excess of entitlement, or otherwise known as recapture. Recapture is a situation where our property values increase to a certain level per student, where that exceeds the state guidelines. If this was the case, the district would actually owe funds back to the state. However, the district received the same notification last year. I did not project that we would hit this threshold. I anticipate the same for this year. The current projections do not have us hitting this threshold for 24-25. However, since TEA has identified Willis as potentially hitting it, we do have to designate a method of payment if we do hit that threshold. So tonight you are delegating authority to Dr. James to be able to select the payment method. The payment method is the purchase of an attendance credit, which in layman's terms means that we are authorizing the state to reduce our state funding if we do owe anything. We have not been in recapture for a while. The last time we were in recapture was 2018-19, where we owed approximately $109,000. But again, I do not anticipate, and current projections do not have us being in recapture for 24-25.
Mr. Carson?
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve for the 2023-2024. Was that supposed to say, excuse me, is it 23-24 or 24-25?
This is 24-25.
Should be 24-25.
Okay, I'll restate that. Move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve for the 2024-2025 school year to delegate contractual authority to obligate the school district under Texas Education Code 11.1511C4 to the superintendent solely for the purpose of obligating the district under TEC 48.257 and TEC Chapter 49, subchapters A and D, and the rules adopted by the Commissioner of Education as authorized under TEC 49.006. This includes approval of the agreement for the purchase of attendance credit or the agreement for the purchase of attendance credit netting Chapter 48 funding.
We have a motion by Mr. Carson, a second by Ms. Traylor. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item E, consideration and possible action item to adopt the 2024-2025 general fund debt service and child nutrition budgets.
Yes, sir. Here it is. We've already reviewed these in detail, so I won't belabor if there are not any additional questions. But presented before you for adoption are the budgets for general fund, debt service fund, and the child nutrition fund for the 2024-2025 school year. The general fund being an amount of $86.38 million, debt service $26.24 million, and child nutrition $6.87 million. The main point that I would like to make is that we're in a very fortunate position to be able to balance these budgets for this fiscal year. We're facing many of the same challenges that other districts around the state are facing, but we've been able to accomplish quite a bit this budget year, while also maintaining a realistic and conservative approach to be able to balance these budgets. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Jones?
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve the 2024-2025 budget for the general fund, debt service fund, and the child nutrition fund as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. Jones, a second by Mr. Carson. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item F, consideration possible action item to approve the certification of debt service collection rate for the 2024-2025 fiscal year and excess collections for 2023 debt service.
This one's relatively straightforward. Truth and taxation laws require that we accept and certify the debt collection rate. In front of you is the 2024 debt collection rate verified by Montgomery County Tax Assessor Collector Tammy McRae. As you will see, our anticipated collection rate for the tax year 2024 is 99.28%. This is essentially Montgomery County notifying us of what percentage of taxes they anticipate collecting. The motion language also refers to excess collections. Due to the collection rate being less than it was last year, the excess collection amount is zero. And so even though it says excess collections, that amount is zero. So we are requesting approval from the collection rate issued by Montgomery County.
Mr. Williams?
Move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve the certification of the debt service collection rate and excess collections as indicated in the letter from Montgomery County Tax Assessor and Collector.
We have a motion by Mr. Williams, a second by Ms. Traylor. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item G, consider and possible action item to approve adoption of 2024 ad valorem tax rate for maintenance and operations.
Sure. As presented, the district is requesting adoption for the 2024 maintenance and operations tax rate of 0.6669 per $100 valuation. As previously discussed, the rate of 0.6669 is considered the maximum compressed rate allowable for a school district to adopt. That is dictated by the state of Texas and TEA. Also, as required, I have included the language that this tax rate will raise more taxes for maintenance and operations than last year's rate. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Carson.
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve the 2024 ad valorem tax rate for maintenance and operations of .6669 per $100 valuation.
We have a motion by Mr. Carson, second by Mr. Williams. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item H, consider possible action item to adopt the 2024 ad valorem tax rate for debt service and the 2024 ad valorem tax rate.
Also, as previously presented, the district is requesting adoption of the debt service tax rate of 0.368 per $100 valuation and a total tax rate of 1.0349 per $100 valuation. This is a 0.0329 increase over last year's total tax rate. I'd be happy to answer any further questions.
Mr. Williams.
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve the 2024 ad valorem tax rate of debt service of 0.3680 per $100 valuation. Further move that the total property tax be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 1.0349 per $100 valuation, which effectively is 13.46% increase in the tax rate.
We have a motion by Mr. Williams, a second by Mr. Carson. Is there any further discussion? I'm never going to understand why it says that we have a 13.46% increase, but I guess I'm not supposed to. All of those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Consider and possible action item to approve the PASA demographic study for attendance zone plan.
Sure. To prepare to open 2 new campuses in both 2025 and 2026, The district would like to update our demographer study to include the most recent data for projected enrollment, housing, and economic developments. Before you is the agreement for PASA, or PASA, the district has historically used for these services and is familiar with our current data. Also, since we plan to open 2 new campuses in the next 2 years, PASA will also be performing an updated attendance zone plan to assist the district in establishing zoning and feeder patterns for these new campuses. The total cost for the service, including the attendance zone planning, is $69,300. This will be performed into the fall and presented early 2025.
Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir. I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve the agreement with PASA concerning a demographic study with attendance on plan in the amount of $69,300.
We have a motion by Mr. Jones, a second by Charles Perry. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item J, consideration of possible action item to determine the selecting of the vendor for furniture, fixtures, and equipment, FF&E, for the 2022 bond projects.
Thank you, Board. Dr. James. The selection for the FF&E vendors, we received 5 proposals on August the 2nd. The FF&E will be listed for Willis Middle School number 3, elementary number 7. The vendors we would like to select would be Educators Depot and Meteor, and the funding is 2022 bond. In your board book, you will see the bid tab, and on the bid tab is actually their scoring and their pricing sheet. And throughout there, you'll be able to see the actual who graded it and who scored it and how they scored it with their notes. We selected the 5 vendors. They put a mock-up at the old row arc. We had 7 classrooms full of furniture. We selected about 7 different people within the district, Dr. James and ITNL, some of them, and they went around and evaluated the furniture. They got to meet the vendors. They talked with them. They explained everything. So everyone graded the sheets there, and then they came back with some pricing, and then we met again and graded it, and our scores stayed the same. And you can actually see there on the bid tab the rankings 1 through 5. So we are bringing to the board ranking number 1 and number 2, which will be Educators Depot and Meteor.
Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir. A couple questions real quick. When are we going to actually purchase them for like the elementary school? How far out will that be? Are you concerned the price points could change on that since we're a little ways out?
The price point that you see before you will change. It will change on both of them.
Okay.
We gave them a generic where they all bid exactly the same, but we're not 100% of exactly what we want at this moment. The school's not far enough along. So in October, we will sit down with the vendor and with our ITNL and all of our instructionals, and we will select exactly what we want for every classroom, every office, principal, and everything. And then they will put together a pricing, come back to the district, and we will present that pricing to the board for approval.
Sounds good. I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve the selection of Education Depot and Meteor as the vendors for the FF&E projects listed above as presented, and authorize the superintendents to attempt to negotiate a contract pursuant to Texas Government Code 2254-004 to present the correct contract to the Board of Trustees for consideration of possible action.
We have a motion by Mr. Jones, a second by Mr. Carson. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item K, consideration and possible action item to select vendor and purchase and install outfield fence padding for the baseball and softball fields.
On July 8th, the board approved the goods and service delivery method for procuring the padding for the outfield of baseball and softball fences. We received 3 bids on July 1st. We are recommending Buck Terrell to receive a contract of $78,865 The funding is 2022 bond. And in your book, you will see the actual bid tab of all three vendors. This one, we went with low bid, so there was no need for grading criteria, so we went with low bid on this one. The low bid was evaluated, spoken to, because you can see there is quite a bit of a difference between the low bid and the second and the high bid, but we vetted the proposal. Their scope of work is solid, and we feel very comfortable with that.
Mr. Jones.
Yes, sir. I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve Buck Terrell Athletics and receive the contract for $79,865 to be selected for the baseball, softball, outfield fence padding as presented, and authorize the superintendent to negotiate a contract pursuant to Texas Government Code 2254-004.
Did you say 79?
Huh?
It's 78.
Oh, I'm sorry. 78,000. That's $78,865. Apologize,
We have a motion by Mr. Jones. Do we have a second? We have a second from Ms. Lagway. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item L, consideration possible action item to approve calling of November 5th, 2024 general trustee election and notice of election.
That would be me. And we did not have any people come out to vote against. So I am moving that we, oh, sorry, that's not my part, that's your part, excuse me. Attached, you will find the order of election calling for the trustee election of 2, 6, and 7. These positions are full 4-year term positions. Also attached is the notice of election. Sorry, excuse me.
Scott, yeah, Scott, can you make that?
Sure.
Yes.
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve the order of election for November 5th, 2024 general trustee election for trustees in positions 2, position 6, and position 7, and approve the notice of election.
Could we have a motion by Mr. Carson, second by Ms. Lagway? Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item M, consideration possible action item to approve adoption of school building bond election. Okay, so I'm gonna put Mr. Josh Green and Travis on the spot because Matt just texted that he's on his way leaving the CTE from his golf. I guess they had a golf booster club. And so at this time, we've had some meetings. We've had community meetings, 3 over the last 3 weeks. This was basically discussed with the previous long-term planning committee. We decided to have meetings, the district hold meetings to get feedback along with the long-term planning, honestly led by the low voter turnout that we had in May. This being a presidential election year, we see it being that we'll have a greater voter turnout. Previous one in 2020, we had almost 19,000 voters turn out. In the election in May, we had approximately 4,200 voters out of the 39,000 registered. So if one of you would just speak briefly as to what you've observed in the meetings and what y'all would like for us to do. Before you want to speak, Josh? Josh is one of our new members that has stepped in and joined us at the meetings, and he's recently moved into Woodland Hills. He's got a very diverse background, and I will tell you, if you've been to the meetings, the information that he brings is good. It's new. He's not from Willis, and so I'd like to say put him on the spot, but I know that he can handle it, and so I appreciate you being there. Josh, tell us about maybe what talked about in the meetings as far as these different props.
Some of the problems with the last bond is, like for me, myself, right? I was a new resident, I moved to town, didn't know much about it. I just got a flyer in the mail, just said Prop A, B, and C, and D. And I went to vote because I just felt like it was the right thing to do, but a lot of people didn't really have the knowledge to vote. So when I got to the polls, I met two people to help me out, Mr. Scott Carson, and they gave me a lot of information that I didn't have previously to voting. And coming to all the meetings you've held and all the ideas that have been given, it seems like so far that everybody's willing to do what it takes to make the next bond when it comes out, to give all the information that is needed. And the biggest thing is just like reaching out to like people within communities that are moving in, like my community, right? So you seen one of my neighbors come yesterday that is not from Texas at all, from Georgia. I'd say about 75% of the people who live around me aren't even from Texas. So they don't even have an idea about bonds in general. So I think the biggest thing is going to be educating not only myself, but the community as a whole. And I'm willing to take on some of that responsibility and help and educate my community this go around. So.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
That's perfect.
There he comes.
There he comes. It's like an entrance. And so Matt served on our long-term planning committee. And Matt, if you would just, I know in May we went out, we had 3 propositions. If you would kind of just quick overview of the Prop A, B, and C.
Good evening. All right, this Prop A, B, and C?
Yes.
Okay. Student Activity Center, Prop A, this go round for $27 million will be a facility at the high school campus. Prop B is our athletic complex and stadium with community room, approximately 8,500 seats, rolling with the $68.8 million budget. And then Prop C would be the aquatic center, which would be at the same site as the athletic complex for $19.6 million.
Okay. And those are all the same amounts from the May bond?
They are.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Carson. Thank you, Matt.
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and adopt the order calling school building bond election as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. Carson, a second by Charles Perry. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item N, consider impossible action item to approve joint election agreements and election services contracts with Montgomery County and San Jacinto County for November 5th, 2024.
Again, the following agreements that are in your board book are agreements of the joint election agreement and a contract for election services, since we use two county, or we are comprised of 2 counties. So that would be the election services as submitted by Montgomery County Elections Officer Susie Harvey and San Jacinto County Elections Administrator Sherry Walker for services for the November 5th elections.
Mr. Jones.
Sir, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and approve the superintendent's recommendation and approve the joint election agreements and contract with Montgomery County and San Jacinto County for the November 5th, 2024 election.
We have a motion by Mr. Jones, a second by Ms. Traylor. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. The board will now convene into closed session for the purposes of considering matters for which closed sessions are authorized by Title 5, Chapter 551, Texas Government Code .071 through .129. A, discuss teacher resignations and consider approval for teacher appointments, Texas Government Code 551.074. And B, discuss United States Postal Service land request. It is 7:14 p.m. It is, the board will now reconvene in open session. It is 9 p.m. Are there any motions from closed session? Being no motions from closed session, we move on to board member comments. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to tell Coach Perry, Ms. Paulette, and Chad Jones, congratulations on having no opponent yet. I think that speaks volumes that nobody's running against y'all, that you guys are doing a great job in the community. Thanks, so we appreciate y'all.
Any other comments?
Sorry about that. Great first week. Thank y'all very much for everything you're doing. We know what we're got in front of us. We believe in y'all. Let's get this done. Let's get it going. Thank y'all.
Superintendent comments.
I would just say we've had a great start to the school year, and I appreciate the support of our board, and we are looking forward to a great year from this great start. So thank you so much. I also am giving y'all a late start or early dismissal tomorrow or this week, so check your text messages. Thank you.
Future, everyone except Trent. Future business meetings. So reminder on Wednesday night is Meet the Cats. Announcing. You the announcer?
Yes, sir.
Announcing will be phenomenal.
September 11th is our next meeting.
September 11th.
September 11th, yes.
Do we have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Williams.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
We have a motion by Mr. Williams, a second by Mr. Carson. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0, and we are adjourned. It is 9:02.